What's good, people? Welcome to the second episode of the album series. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. 1. Mastering. 2. A question I got on the previous video, which was how to know when to use which plugins and why. And 3. I'm going to be talking about album versus singles. Should you do just singles? Should you do a full album? How many singles should you do if you do an album? All that good stuff. So let's dive in. So first thing I want to talk about is mastering. The most common question I get is, do I master myself? And I don't. I've mastered a few tracks myself throughout the years, and all my edits and remixes and flips, I do master myself. But for releases and official releases, I like to get other ears on because I'm mostly producing everything myself. So I feel like getting a second pair of ears is really, really valuable when it comes to making choices in the mix and getting a master on the track. Now for this album, I've been working with Fred Miller, a Danish mastering engineer who's a super incredible engineer. I highly recommend him if you guys are looking for a mastering engineer. On my previous album, I worked with Subhuman, amazing engineer as well. He does a lot of like What's So Not and a bunch of different Australian acts. Also a super good guy, shouts to him. But yeah, for this one, I'm using Fred Miller, and he's been absolutely incredible. Speaking of, I just got a master today, which I haven't heard yet, on a track that I showed in the last video. And I figured it would be funny to just compare it with my demo master, just to see how much of a difference it makes to have him master it.
I get it, baby, seen it here first. Cash out like checks on the first. Plenty green for the squad like turf. The motto is don't stop it if it work. Make it work, make it work. Work that, work that, work that. Make it work.
Gonna quickly preview the second drop as well, which was actually co-produced. It's one of 2 tracks on the album that I didn't fully produce myself. One is a collab with Decap, and this was co-produced by Blaze. Shout out Blaze. Let me just hear that.
Work that, work that, work that. Bitch, I'm on a
Yeah, sounds incredible. For this album, we're aiming at like hitting between -6 and -8 LUFS. But honestly, I don't care that much. It's not that important to me. This is not like, or this track may be a little bit of like a DJ supported track, but honestly, I don't care about like getting my tracks to -3, -4, like a lot of electronic music artists, especially like dubstep people. So we're aiming for that, since I feel like my tracks are more dynamic and deserves to be more dynamic and are more organic in the sounds. So it makes no sense to squash it further. I want to A/B with my master. Just to be fair, my master is a demo master. It's just a Clipper and Ozone I slapped on, I think, maybe God Particle as well. So you can hear that his has a lot more clarity, and that is probably, or it is, due to cleaning up the mid-range and cleaning up the high end as well. So I'm really stoked about how this master sounds. Just gonna
get it, baby, seen it here first. Cash out like checks on the first. Plenty green for the squad like turf. The motto is don't stop it if it work. Make it work, make it work. The motto is don't stop it if it work. Make it work, do it work.
So his verses sound infinitely better than mine too. I do think he might have a little too much high end on the vocal for my liking. It gets to a point where it can sound a little bit unnatural in the high end with rap vocals, especially when you add a high shelf or something on it. So I do feel like it might be the master or it might be the vocals that might have a little bit too much high end. But let's go over the second drop. So here, there almost isn't any difference between his and my master. His sounds a little bit more compressed, which I'm not sure I like that much, but it's very, very close. His does sound better in the high end though. I actually don't know if he's running through analog gear, but definitely sounds cleaner in the high end for some reason. That's typically how I go over masters, send feedback, get feedback back, compare with mine, compare with other tracks as well. So yeah, that's a short section on mastering for you guys. Next thing we gotta talk about is how and when to use which plugins and why. Very complex topic, and it's tough to just answer briefly. But in general, it comes down to color. I'm thinking of saturation distortion plugins here or compressors. It comes down to function. I'm thinking of EQs here. And it comes down to sound when I'm thinking of limiters, compressors, and clippers. With practice and experience and knowing your listening system well, you will in time know when to use what plugin. And I'm not saying that you always know when to use what, but when trying out different plugins on different sounds, and through trial and error and, well, years of experience, you'll know when to use what. For example, here in this remix flip I just did quickly yesterday, I have a bass that I'm gonna show you some different colors of. The drop sounds like this.
Touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave it, stop, format it. Touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave it. Touch it, bring it, pay it.
Still very rough, just an idea, but the bass that you got is somewhat distorted already from current here. Now I took the distortion off and the compression off, so it's...
Touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave.
So this is just like a low sign. We could also just have done an init preset, but what I'm gonna show you here is in terms of coloring. If you see any video of mine, you know that I always color my sounds with the black box. That's why my basses typically have some harmonic content and typically sounds very warm, and not always do I have more on than the black box in terms of coloring. Typically keep it around here. And then saturation, I keep from 0 to 25% on this. And I use this for mild to moderate change in color of the sound. But if I want to do something more drastically, I would go for Rift, or I would go for Arturia Distortion Coalfire, or I would go for another distortion plugin. I have different tools in my toolbox for mild to moderate, for moderate to extreme, and then for like super ultra extreme. But I do like Rift and just browsing through presets on a bass. Those provide very extreme tones, and sometimes you can use the dry wet if there isn't any phasing. That's what I will sometimes do, like just... When we're talking about what plugins to choose when, it comes down to what you know, and it comes down to what you have in your toolbox. But generally, there are some like ground rules. Like if you are going to EQ a master, I would go for a good EQ, like a Pro Q4 or a Kirchhoff or something in that range. Could also be an emulation of like an SSL or something. But essentially going linear phase, picking something that has oversampling if you're doing it on the master. There are a bunch of different rules when it comes down to picking what plugins when. So yeah, that's pretty much why I use certain plugins in different situations. Just to answer it briefly, because I know I'm going to get the question, limiter versus compressor versus clipper, or just limiter versus clipper. Typically, when I do any sort of mastering processing, I would clip first and then limit, or I will clip first and then clip, essentially spreading the work across two processes. So instead of having one clipper that's taken off 340 dB, you have one that's taken off 1 to 2 and one that's taken off 1 to 2. Yeah, which provides a cleaner sound and essentially gets your master to sound better. But yeah, that's it for this segment. Okay, so let's talk about singles and albums. The general practice is that you have like 4, 5, 6 singles if the album is a full-length album. And that's what most DSPs, music labels, distributors, that's the advice that most of them would give. On my previous album, Dusk, that came out last year, I had this rollout, 5 singles, and then the 6th single came with the album. So it gets pitched to editors and DSPs and all that as well. So that's almost the same strategy that I'm doing for this album, but I got the advice that there should be a month between each single release, and I honestly think that 6 months was too much. In terms of starting the release schedule in September with the first single and be like, yo, the first single from the album is out. And then like next month, oh, the second single. And then it went on 6 months before the album actually came. And to be completely honest, I don't think I have enough hype as an artist to do that, to just keep the people anticipating an album for 6 months. So for this album currently, I'm doing it a little bit different. I'm gonna have 4 singles and then the album come with the 5th single. So I started releasing my album singles in April and the album is gonna drop in August. So that's how I'm doing it a little bit differently. Now in terms of the question about should you do an album or just do singles or just do an EP, it's a very tough question to answer. It depends on a lot of things. 1, do you have material that would actually fit an album or would be fit for an album or could like exist in an album format, or do you just have tracks that are singles? Like if you are super like EDM-y, no vocals, just super hard EDM tracks, I probably wouldn't do an album unless there's a context that could be visually or audio wise, like sound wise, a context there. But it depends on a lot of things. It depends on what you're trying to do, branding wise, visual wise. There's a whole bunch of factors that plays in. For me, I really enjoy making albums and I really enjoy not having rules when it comes to making music. Like a lot of my tracks on this upcoming album is 3-parters, meaning that there are 3 different parts of the track.
Down low, 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 low.
And I don't really overthink, like, would this work in a live setting? Would this work in a streaming service? All that stuff. I don't really think about putting stuff in a box when I'm doing an album. I just create, go with the flow, and just seeing what comes out of it. So yeah, that's my whole take on singles versus albums and all that. I think it's important to also address marketing, and like the more singles you do, the more work you will have with promoting those, the more budget you might have to allocate to actually push those singles. For this album, I'm spending a lot of money on video. That's the main cost of the singles. And then of course, flying out to people, shooting video, having the featured artist on the track shoot video and do photos. I'm paying for all that. Of course, mix masters the post. But yeah, if you want a full like budget breakdown of the album and the singles and all that, please do ask. But yeah, let me know what you guys want to see in the next one. The next single, Dreads Rhythm, drops on May 23, and I'm so excited for it. It's like a dancehall, EDM, super bass driven 3-part track with Dread MC, and I just can't wait to show you guys. See you guys in the next one. Peace.
Watch your road, boy. Real the pit maker. This one fever. Batman take off. So if I take off.